I am Ruxana Zia from CLT, and you have already seen Fatma, our education developer, and the person in the background who will be coordinating the Zoom and your chat is Zarek at CLT. So the purpose of the series is to establish a collaborative community of scholars with peer sharing and learning. The free part is to provide equal access to all national and international scholars. And so this course, as you have seen in the video, has been developed to synchronize with the researcher development framework. That framework was reconfigured in 2025. And so at present, the webinar course that we have provided has a strong coverage of the domains related to researcher values, behaviors, research methods, digital literacy, ethical and responsible research, scholarly communication, publication, and collaborative research culture. But it offers a coverage of funding and finance, formal project management, supervision, people management, coaching, mentoring, and research translation. We will hopefully add them as the time goes by. There were 8,500 registrations for this session, with 400 from international campuses and 230 national campuses and 93 countries of the world. The first person, and this is a session which we added because there are lots of things when you're practically doing research. Books do not tell you about small tips and small, guidance, simple guidance to help easy. When I was doing my PhD, I was provided some tips from a senior PhD scholar who was finishing his thesis. And he gave me some remarkable tips, which saved me a lot of months of time, not just hours of time. So those tips really go a long way. We have compiled a list of our best experts from the campus. Is Firasat Jabeen. She is an associate professor and chairperson of the Department of Mass Comm at our campus. She has completed her PhD with Fulbright funding, and her research focuses on the intersection of rhetoric, communication, and cultural studies. Her doctoral dissertation examined Orientalism from a Pakistani standpoint, arguing for its ubiquitous nature in periphery country like ours. Her areas, she has represented research at leading conferences, and she has several national and international publications. And Firasat, if I am not wrong, recently you were awarded an honor. Would you kindly tell about that honor? It was a moment of pride for FCC. So please do tell about it, and then I would request you to open the session.
Ji, thank you, Dr. Ruxana, for this kind introduction. I was recently appointed as the founding chair of International Communication Association Pakistan chapter. ICA, International Communication Association, is leading platform in my field. And each year, their annual convention draws 4,000 to 5,000 scholars from all over the world, and they have their members in some 80 plus countries. So they have their chapters in New Zealand, Indonesia, India, and some other. I feel I'm honored to be in this session, which is part of successful series of webinars that CLT has been hosting this summer. And I was looking at the list of registrations list, and I was amazed to see the overwhelming number of participants. We have participants, quite a few of them are graduate students, some of them are undergrad students as well. We have faculty members from all across the country. And we have international participants from Nigeria, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the Philippines. And then in video, I learned that we had experts from some 10 countries. All of this is amazing. I think CLT team has done an amazing job for organizing these sessions. Well, For my part of presentation, as you can see on the slide, I'm going to talk about how to spot presentation and publication opportunities. But before I begin, let me begin with this caveat. Although the title of this suggestion suggests that I am a pro, this is the title, and tips and what books do not teach us, tips from pros, I do not consider myself a pro. I am a scholar and teacher of communication who is learning, has been learning, and I really appreciate being in this session where we actually get to learn from each other's experiences. So, for this presentation, I am essentially going to talk about ideas that we usually do not find in books, that are also not discussed in classroom settings. Instead, we learn them from our own experiences and with time. So, in my research experience, I have learned something that I would like to share. I'm sure they will be helpful for our participants as well. I would like to begin with the importance of presenting at conferences. I remember when I was a graduate student, and often used to have this question: how do I know what are the leading platforms of my area? How do I know what conferences I should present to? Or how do I know if a certain platform is predatory or respected? I think I would like to emphasize the importance of discussion and talking to your professors and seniors here. In my experience, the more you talk, the more you learn, the more information you get. So get yourself to talking, talk to your seniors and talk to your professors and see what conferences they are presenting at, what journals they are publishing in, because eventually you will be joining them in this for the same platforms. For my second point, I think it's really important for scholars to learn early on in their research that what are some names whose works they find influential and inspiring. I think it's important to identify those names, then see what conferences they are presenting at, see what journals they are publishing in, because they are actually your peers. And in future, you will be joining the same conversation that those people are having. So it's important to identify what names or what name or names you find influential in your research area. For my last point, I have listed some platforms that are leading my field. I am from the field of communication and media studies, and I have listed some abbreviations of organizations that are leading in my area. There is one NCA, National Communication Association, then International Communication Association, then Association for Education and Journalism and Mass Communication, and lastly, International Association for Media and Communication Research. Well, these platforms, they have their annual conventions, and each year they draw hundreds of scholars. Their annual conventions are attended by hundreds of scholars in the field. And I can safely say that these are the fields that sort of lead my discipline. With that, these platforms also publish journals. Sometimes it happens that they have collaboration with prestigious, respected journals, like NCA has collaboration with Taylor and Francis Routledge. So they publish some 10 journals. Routledge publishes them, however, NCA owns them. Same is the case with ICA. So ICA journals are published by Oxford University Press. OUP publishes them, however, ICA owns them. And AEJMC, so AEJMC journals are published by SAGE, and AEJMC has the ownership. When I compare these platforms from other disciplines, I know like MLA in English literature is as big as ICA in communication, and same is the case with APA. Like ICA again is as big as APA in the field of psychology. So it is really helpful for scholars to identify early in their research what are some respected prestigious platforms that they can consider for their conferences and then for publication. Now this leads to my the second area that I would like to address in my presentation: how presentations lead to publication opportunities. Well, when you go to a conference, you actually get the chance of networking. You network with your potential collaborators. Not only that, you get the opportunity of networking with publishers as well. I know in all respected conference platforms, publishers most of the time they set up stalls where you also can get the chance of having a one-on-one conversation with a publisher in your area. So that's how conferences present us several publication opportunities. I would like to take a pause here and share an experience with you. Actually, a piece of advice that was shared by my doctoral program coordinator at the time of doctoral orientation. He once said that you need to identify what should be the trajectory of your presentation. And it always begins from a paper. It can be any paper. It can be a term paper that you develop during your seminar class. It can be even a class assignment that you work on for your class assessment. So once you have a paper and you feel it's ready for any international conference or publication, just send it out. For a conferences usually allow presenters for a 15 minutes long presentation. A 15 minutes long presentation mean 8 pages long draft, roughly 2000 words. So if you have a draft that has at least 2,500 words, so just do not wait. Send it out for any conference opportunity. If your paper gets selected, you will have the chance to share it with scholarly community and get feedback on your work, and you can further translate it into a publishable work. Now, from paper, you move to public presentation, and then from presentation, you move it further to publication. After receiving scholarly community's feedback in a conference presentation, I believe you will feel more confident for developing it into a publishable paper. And then you can, once you transform 8 pages long paper into a 25 pages long paper, after feedback from conference, it's ready for publication. So this is the trajectory. You take your paper to one level up, which is presentation, and then you take it further up to publication level. So that's the trajectory that I have found to be very helpful, like paper, presentation, and publication. I remember one of my PhD professors, he used to say that once you have published, let's say 4 or 5 articles on a certain area, this gives you level of confidence to start developing a book project in that field. If I talk about myself in my CV, I think almost all of my publications, their departure point was a conference presentation. That's how I began. So a conference presentation draft certainly has the potential of a publishable paper. Fourth point that you see listed here, I was in my previous slide, I was saying that it's important for scholars to identify what are influential names in their area, where the topic, the area of research they are developing. I think it's also important for scholars to identify what are the leading journals in this area. And I'll tell you how it happens, how you identify leading journal in your area. Well, when I supervise research for my students, I usually tell them to begin from literature review. Once they have an outline of introduction ready, I ask them, all right, let's begin with literature review. And this is the same thing I do when I am writing for my research. After having first draft of, not the first draft, just an outline of introduction, I usually jump to literature review. But again, each writer is different. This is something that has worked for me, and that can work for other people too. When I work on literature review, that actually gives me level of confidence to know, all right, where my work is going, what theoretical apparatus I can employ confidently, what methodological orientation I can employ. And not just that, this is the question that I usually ask my students after they have finished their literature review chapter, that can you tell me 1 or 2 journals about which you can confidently say that these are the journals that are leading my field? Because potentially the same journals can be home for your publication. When you are writing your literature review, in a way, side by side, you are considering homes for your writing. You are considering, all right, what can be the journals where I'll be publishing after I finish my literature review. So my suggestion here would be to identify journals early on in your research, which you can publish, which you can consider for your publication. This is my last slide, and most of it is repetitive. I have already discussed several points here, so I will just briefly wrap them up. The first point here is to join listservs and subscriptions. In my first slide, I talked about respected platforms in a field. They have subscription opportunities as well. Most of them, according to my knowledge, are free. However, sometimes you may have to pay. Also, do get professional memberships of respected platforms in your field. I know, I understand that sometimes memberships are expensive, especially when you consider exchange rate. They come in usually USD, and if you consider exchange rate in PKR, it's usually a hefty amount. But at the same time, most of these platforms are they are considerate for scholars who come from global south and from developing countries. So join academic and professional organizations in your area, get subscription, get membership, and join their listservs, because that's where you get information of conference opportunities, publication opportunities. That's how they disseminate and share information on call for paper, call for submission, call for book chapter, calls for different grants available in your field. And not just that, the most important thing is that is how you come to know what are the latest trends in your field, what are the contemporary ideas. I mean, all of this you can know if you join listservs and professional memberships for your organization. So I already talked about that these platforms, they publish journals. And it's important that you identify those journals, because some of those journals you can consider for your publication opportunities. The last point that I have listed here, although I have talked about it, I would like to talk about again very briefly. Talk to your professors, your seniors, and do not hesitate to reach out. I remember when I was a doctoral student, I was once very hesitant to ask my professor. I was actually developing a panel proposal, and I wanted to ask my professor if she too could be part of the, and I was a bit hesitant. However, when I asked, her response was very positive, and it was great enriching experience working with her. We presented together at a conference, I remember, in Pittsburgh, and later we were able to develop that into a publishable work. So do not hesitate, just get yourself to talking. That's really important, that because that's how you find your potential collaborators. That's how you get to learn about opportunities. So that would be all for my presentation. We can now move to our second presenter, Dr. Mir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Farajat. We will quickly move on to our next presenter, Dr. Subhamir. Dr. Subhamir is an assistant professor in the Department of English, and she's a Fulbright alumna. She brings national and international experience in teaching, research, and community service. Her research interests include modern drama, activist theater, transcultural literature, and community development. She is an active member of several professional and community organizations, including the Earl Mir Trust Library Research and Publication Center, Each One Teach One Welfare Foundation, Theater and Pedagogy of the Oppressed, American Society for Theater Research, and the Pakistan-US Alumni Network. Thank you so much, Dr. Subha, for joining us. Over to you now.
Okay, thank you so much. So I gave the entire introduction. Currently, I'm at the University of Chitral volunteering for a summer school, and my participants are here with me as well. Thank you so much to CLT and Dr. Rukhsana for arranging this research methodology summer seminar, and it is the concluding series. So I'll be touching only upon the very basic concepts that often, as previous speakers have mentioned, that often they are ignored because they are not mentioned in the book. There is no rule book for that, and we learn as we go through the process. Next slide, please. These are some very basic concepts that can be used by everyone, including BS, MPhil, or PhD, Students as well as researchers in life in general, basic concepts about selecting your supervisor. Usually we go about and select our supervisor based on who is famous, who is the head of the department, who has the most publication. But being a researcher and a teacher, I would suggest select your supervisor based on your field and temperament, somebody you can get along with, somebody who is actually available to guide you, somebody who can guide you on your field. A professor can be an amazing professor, but in another area. So make sure that you select your supervisor based on all these things, that you have a good working compatibility with both the supervisor as well as the institute. Emailing etiquette is something I unfortunately have to mention, because I have received email from my students as well as sometimes the researcher where I receive, hi, is the university open today? Or hey, is there class? So this is not how things work. When you are emailing, whether it is an editor at a journal or you're emailing your professor or anybody in academia, there should be a proper way, proper email etiquettes, salutations, your wording, and then also people have a very busy life. Please usually give them 5 working days to respond to your email. If it is urgent, mention so in the subject so people have a rough idea. Whenever you send an email, again, the same goes for your publication. If you're sending emails to editors, everything applies. You cannot just submit your article and expect them to figure out the rest. Make sure you attach a cover letter, make sure you attach proper subject line, you have proper salutation, and you have proper email body. Working etiquettes when it comes to writing your research, especially when it comes to writing your thesis or dissertation, please give 2 weeks to your supervisor for reviewing your each chapter, which means that you have to plan, you have to have a proper plan. So if you need to graduate within a year, you need to have a working plan where you assign each chapter 2 weeks of revision and multiple revisions for each chapter. Then you have meeting deadlines. You have those scheduled in advance with your professor instead of just waiting, sitting and waiting for them to respond or expecting them to reach out to you. Avoiding plagiarism, I think this is a very basic concept, but in the age of AI, a lot of us unfortunately think that they can be smart and they can just paraphrase or improve their language by using AI. However, be very careful about the AI policy in your university. Get to know about the policy in your university or the journal you are submitting to. Be very vigilant about following it, avoid it, and if, God forbid, you end up making a mistake, be honest about it. मैंने ये बात पहले भी शायद की थी कि कोई भी आपको अप्रिशिएट नहीं करेगा. वो एक इंसान ने गलती की थी और वो डटा रहा था अपनी गलती पे पूरा 1 साल. Nobody would appreciate that. But if you make a mistake and you admit it when the time comes, of course, then you can always correct it. Deadlines have a working plan. एक जो स्टूडेंट्स मैंने देखा है बहुत ज्यादा मिस्टेक करते हैं. दे थिंक अगर उनकी सबमिशन डेडलाइन है लेट्स से 20th जून, दे वुड सेंड मी एन एंटायर ड्राफ्ट ऑन 15 जून और 10 जून. मैडम थीसिस हो गया, ये साइन कर दें. That is not how things work, right? You need to have time for multiple revisions. So you need to have a proper working plan. You need to finish your you need to finish your first draft. I tell my students that the real work starts after you have written your first draft. That's when the revision and the improvement of the research starts. So make sure you have a proper working plan for multiple revisions. Another thing that we do not learn from books is the self-reward and avoiding burnout. Make sure you take care of your mental and physical health. आपने ये sentence सुना होगा, body keeps the score. So even if you do not take rest, your body makes sure that you do by getting sick, right? So make sure when you have, for me, for every chapter submission, I would celebrate it in your own way. You must have some things that your mind considers as a reward. Maybe a nice meal, maybe a hangout with friends, maybe just relaxing time with your family. Whatever you consider a reward or a good time, make sure you have those plans, breaks planned, so that you can work on your thesis without burning out and while taking care of your mental and physical health. Last one I do want to talk about, because when it comes to research, we are all about being vigilant, being active, being thorough, getting a lot of publications, getting your name out there, and all those things. Yes, they are great. But what we forget amidst all those is we are supposed to enjoy the process. Yes, you're supposed to get publications and you're supposed to be a good research. But if we are not enjoying the process, if this is not what we actually want to do in life, then what's the point? I believe that is why previously we were talking, and I stress highly on choosing the topic, choosing the research project that you are interested in, something that really interests you and grabs your attention, because then you will be able to enjoy the research process. Thank you so much.
Quickly move on to our next presenter, Dr. Siklana Bascha. He's a professor in the Department of Physics here at Common Christian College University. He has completed a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Washington in United States. He has taught A-level physics as a lecturer at Aitchison College from 2006 to 2010. He has been a member of several professional bodies, including the Materials Research Society, Society for Biomaterials, and Society of Magnetic Materials. He has over 75 publications in internationally reputed journals with a cumulative impact factor of 250 and 2,100 citations. He serves as a peer reviewer for reputed journals, including Chemistry of Materials, Nanoscale Journals, Journal of Materials Chemistry, Biomacromolecules, Journal of Applied Physics, and RSC Advances. He is also an active social media commentator, blogger, and op-ed writer for English newspapers, and he works as a writer, editor, and proofreader of scientific manuscripts. Thank you so much, Dr. Siklan, for joining us. Over to you now.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Academic and scholarly writing follows a very specific jargon and style that is different from ordinary and informal writing. There are some undocumented rules that, if not followed, the journal editors and reviewers take note and usually send back the manuscript for revision. And that is a great challenge for the non-native speakers. Being non-native speakers, we make many stylistic anomalies that I'm going to highlight in this session, and that how to fix them. Following these very simple tips and tricks, your academic writing will drastically improve. So I begin with the first point that when you're writing your manuscript, particularly for the journals, do not begin titles, headings, and figure and table captions with an article A, N, and D. Abbreviation must be defined at the first use in the abstract as well as in the main text. Do not define an abbreviation if it is not repeated. If it is to be used only once, just don't use it. Once an abbreviation is defined, you have to always use it. Do not start a sentence with conjunctions such as and, but, also. Instead, use conjunctive adverbs or transitional phrases such as moreover, furthermore, in addition, however, nonetheless. So using and, but, also at the start of the sentence, it is informal, it is not taken positively at the reviewers and the journal's end. Use the words, very formal words such as approximately 5 kilometers instead of about 5 kilometers or around 5 kilometers. Approximately is more formal. Okay, always put a space between numbers and their units, and never start a sentence with the abbreviations such as fig dot. You're not going to do this. Always use the full word. Figure 1 shows XRD plots, such as this example. Do not start a sentence with numbers. You have to spell the numbers. F-I-V-E, 5 men went home. Do not use the words such as don't, doesn't, didn't kind of expression in academic writing. Adverbs that end in ly and an adjective preceding a noun are not hyphenated. For example, a highly respected professor, you will not put a hyphen between highly and respected. It must be unhyphenated. It does not require a hyphen. And if there are sentences such as to observe stars, he used a telescope, you have to try to write in a more native style, like he used a telescope to observe stars. We improved the film's flexibility and transparency. Now, this is an informal style. The native writers will never use this. Instead, they will write like, we improve the flexibility and transparency of the film. So this style is explained as avoid using sex on genitives in academic writing. A single space should be inserted before and after mathematical operators and symbols in equations such as equal, minus, plus, greater, less than. So you have to put a space between these mathematical operators. Most of the journals, in fact, what I have seen more than 90% of the time, so journals ask the authors to run their manuscript through some native companies or the native writers who are good at writing in a native style English. Now, there is a difference between writing in a native style and a non-native style. And we, the non-native people, the non-native speakers, we write in English that English is grammatically correct. Almost it is grammatically correct, but that is not appreciated by the reviewers and the editors of the high-impact journals. For example, in non-native style, a person will write like light is sucked into a black hole. Now that information is correct, the grammar is correct, but that is a non-native style. Instead, a native person will write it as light is trapped by the strong gravitational pull of a black hole. See, the both expressions give the same meaning. They both are grammatically correct, but the native style has more flow and rhythm. A non-native person will write as heat makes atoms more faster. But a native writer will write it as increasing temperature increases the kinetic energy of atoms. A non-native person will write as atoms are hooks that bond together. A native person will write atoms form bonds through interactions between electrons. Non-natives will write as salt dissolves by melting in water. Native, salt dissociates into ions when it dissolves in water. Non-native, genes jump from one DNA strand to another. Native, genes are transferred between DNA molecules through genetic recombination. Non-native, plants eat sunlight. Native, plants convert sunlight into chemical energy through photosynthesis. You see, on all these examples, the information is exactly correct. The grammar is exactly, absolutely correct, but there's a style in the tone. There's a style in the rhythm. And this is the native style that 90% of the high impact journals, they always send back the articles that it should be passed to some native speakers. Then there are also many instances in which some journals ask that the conventions in your manuscript must be, sometimes they must be American English and other times they must be British English. Now both are English languages, but there are some differences. And I give you some examples and you have to take note of these differences. For example, in spellings, American English, it is simplified spellings such as color, C-O-L-O-R, organize, it is with Z, analyze, it is with Z. In British English, it is a traditional spellings, it is more complex, more complicated, such as color, C-O-L-O-U-R, organize, and it is usually, it is with S. And analyze, it is also with S. In vocabulary, it is for American English, it is math, it is elevator, it is semester. In British English, it is maths, it is lift, it is term. In punctuation, double quotation marks, there are double quotation marks. There are periods and commas inside the quotes. This is very important because most of the times, in fact, 99% of the time, we Pakistanis, when we are writing manuscript, we mostly put periods and commas after the quotes. But if you're writing for an American journal, like American Chemical Society, ACS or APS, you are going to put commas inside the quotes. And you use serial commas. But in British English, you use single quotation marks, periods and commas are outside the quotes, serial commas are less commonly used. Regarding grammar, you use simple past tense, and then you use the words such as on the weekend. But in British English, you make frequent use of present perfect tense, and you use the word at the weekend, not on the weekend. Regarding formality, Generally, the American English is more direct, but British English retains the more formal tone. Regarding dates and numbers, it is the format in American English is month, day, year, and there is a period as a decimal point. But in British English, it is day, month, year, and commas as the decimal points. So these are some smart and quick tips that I shall be following with the participants. And further, if there are any further questions, I can try to answer those questions during the question answer session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sakten. We will move on to the last presenter of today's session, Dr. Sharoon Hanouk. He currently serves as chairperson of the Department of Statistics at Forman Christian College University. He has taught statistics at Government College University in Lahore for 18 years. He is a graduate of Case Western Reserve University with a PhD in epidemiology and biostatistics. He is a Fulbright Fellow and a member of the American Statistical Association. He has served as the chair of the Student Organizations and Allocations Committee at the Western Reserve University, Case Western Reserve University, and he has contributed to several committees within the Graduate Student Senate to improve students' campus experience. He has published in internationally reputed journals. He is a Formanite, Arabian, and an R programming enthusiast. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharoon. Over to you now.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, you're audible.
All right, sounds great. So a lot has been said already. I mean, by Dr. Firasat, Dr. Mir, and Dr. Saklan and Badshaw as well. And I understand they have talked about various kind of diverse ideas that what book doesn't teach. But I will be mainly focused on some of the, psychological impacts, as well as a lot that has to do with talking about research and misunderstandings about research, and then some of its political aspects of research. So first and foremost is that research is messy. A lot of people think that, and even the books also teaches us that it's a very linear. You have a research question, you design it, you write on the matter, you do it, and you publish it. But that's not how it goes. When you are talking about research and research questions, you always have to, revise your research questions several times. You have to change your methodology due to so many practical constraints. You have to collect additional data because the first data sets are inadequate, and you have to rewrite your paper multiple times. A lot of time, things you do a lot of back and forth movement in different areas of it. The second more important thing is that most research ideas do not work initially, and that is something that is very important for someone who are starting their research. That research has a lot of failures, and not every single research being done leads to the success that so-called we call it, and we always aspire for getting positive results from our research. So one should be very familiar that when we carry out research, it's full of failures, and the failures, there are certain aspects that contributes to those failures. That could be insufficient data. You are unable to run the experiments the way you are. I mean, right now I'm doing this research with one of the hospitals here, and one of the challenges that we are facing is that the data has been hacked into, or there were some issues with the data, and all the data were erased. And my project has been delayed for many months now, and we may have to extend our project to many years in the future, because we were relying on a lot of retrospective data. So right now we are at a stage where we have insufficient data, and this is something that's very common when you are running experiments as well. Then second is flawed assumptions, because when we start research is thought of as a very clear path, but one should know this, that research is not as clear as it should be. There are a lot of grays when we start research, and there are a lot of ifs and buts out there that get answered as we move along the path. But more important thing is that we make, as researchers, we make certain assumptions regarding our project and regarding the future of the project. So sometimes not all assumptions turn out to be true, and they are false, they are flawed, and that leads us into, sometimes failures. And then lack of novelty. This is very important. A lot of people think of novelty as if something they're doing real big. Please know this. If you are someone who's beginner, you're not going to, uh, you know, do. I mean, this is very rare phenomena. I'm not saying, I'm not negating it, but as a beginner, someone doing research one topic for the first ever time, you're not going to get Nobel Prize. Let me be honest. Uh, it's a whole process, as Dr. Firasit earlier mentioned, that once you are a once you write uh, 4 or 5 publications, then you are ready to write a book, and that's how it goes. This is a process, and I've seen a lot of people. They actually are not focused to one dimension; rather, they jump on to different areas. So keep this in mind as a beginner. I mean, you can always take expertise into different areas and jump onto them, but that is something that you can do at the later stage, not as a beginner or not as someone who is starting this research area. So you want to spend some time focusing on just one research area and take one step at a time instead of taking long leaps and taking big steps. Rather, you always try to answer one question at a time. This kind of like very common for the people, that they think that, oh well, since I'm doing this research, why not let's collect a little bit more data. No, that's not the attitude of the researcher. You always take small step, you always focus on one problem, and that one problem is going to lead you to the further answers and help you identify the gaps for your next project. And that's how this whole cycle keeps going. Sometimes there are limitations in the methods, and one of the most important skill is learning when to stop. A lot of people, they keep doing work, and when they identify that the research is leading towards failure, but they still are hopeful that, oh well, I might get some hint, I might get some research, some good results coming out of it. Look, spending more time on this may not really help. If you have identified that this is something that's not working, do talk with your supervisor. A lot of people, they do not try to talk about the failures with the supervisors or their peers. As Dr. Firasat earlier mentioned, conferences are a place. Yes, you go to conference, share your ideas. Know this: going to the conference doesn't mean you're being judged by your work. No, a lot of people go with their incomplete ideas, and that's where they talk with the researchers and try to find out better solutions for their projects. So talking about the failure is something very important. So the other thing is, a lot of people, a lot of quantitative research more specifically relies on a lot of data. And know this: data are never perfect. We spend an unlimited amount of time cleaning the data only. Like, I being someone who works with data all the time, we often say that we spend 80% of our time trying to fix the data, and once the data is fixed, that's when we are able to answer our problems. There are a lot of missing values in the data, a lot of duplicate response records, a lot of inconsistent coding, outliers, measurement errors, and a lot of documentation gaps are out there. Further, one thing is very important, that literature reviews are more than summaries. A lot of people try to do it like as if they are summaries. So they uh, you know write the name of the author and start explaining what they're doing. Please know this: it's kind of a storytelling. So you have to be a good storyteller if you really want to talk about your research to the masses. And it's certainly beyond the summaries. So research questions matter more than sophisticated statistics. I have seen a lot of people. What they do is they try to run some very highly sophisticated statistical methods, which are very difficult to interpret, difficult to run, difficult to understand. to answer, but please know this: stats is not something that's going to determine the quality of your paper. Your research question is a more important thing that's going to determine the quality of your research. So if you are using some poor study design, if your research question is poor, highly sophisticated statistics are not going to help. The poor study remains poor if the design, if the research your research question is poor. If you are using incorrect design, statistics is not going to improve that. And then I would like to talk about the writing part of it, and reporting of the negative results. A lot of people, when they find out negative results, they try to hide them. They do not try to report them. And a lot of journals also have the problem that they do not publish negative results. But this is something, if this wouldn't have happened, we not have antibiotics with us. So negative results are very important. They're valuable. So if you have done your research well, and you got some negative results, know this, that that this is either going to get you Nobel Prize or get you a very dirty failure. So, we have this example of Dr. Katalin Karakova, someone who developed this COVID vaccine. She was failed. She was working at, I think, UPenn, where she was demoted, where she was, she had to switch her job, and she was not getting any fundings from the university and from international, from other research organizations. But eventually she was able to join BioNTech, and she was able to produce a COVID-19 vaccine that was RNA-based vaccine, and that has saved almost saved our world. And eventually she was able to get Nobel Prize. So negative results are important; they're valuable. And one other important thing is writing. A lot of people think that when they are doing maths or they are doing science, so science is important, but you should know this: communication is equally important, and one should always learn to communicate their research. And if you are able to explain it to your grandmother, that what your research is, truly know this, that is what you're gonna that I mean you can write it well. A lot of researchers, they end up into the situation where they have to face writer's block. So writer blocks is not something that's alien to researchers. You do not feel like carrying out research, you do not feel like writing, but know this: writers, I always consider writer block as a creative time. While you're going through the writer's block, actually you are spending more time thinking about it, and you are actually trying to figure out that how to better explain something. So do not ever think of writer's block as something negative, but there is some positive aspects of it. But there is one way to break it, is to just write. And then there are some psychological aspects to it. Please know this: research is not an easy path. It is full of stress, where you will be staying up all nights, and not one nighter, but multiple nighters are going to be there. You're going to spend a lot of time in the labs. You're going to work overnight. You're going to, do a lot of other, you know, uh, I mean, a lot of things are going to lead you to depression. A lot of things are going to lead you to the stress. So best thing is, whenever you are into this situation, please take breaks. A lot of people, they think that consistently, if they are writing, they are not going to help you at all. Take breaks. Uh, Go watch movies. Go travel north. Go for regular walks. Go hiking. Do something that disconnects you from research for some time. A break of 2 days, 1 week, even is perfectly all right if you wanna get back to your research and be more creative into things. Know this. Do not forget that whenever you deal with these kind of anxieties, you're gonna deal with a lot of anxieties. Your parents are going to ask you, oh, when are you going to finish your dissertation? Your peers are going to graduate. Everyone is doing research, and some people graduates early, some people gets to do things late. So everyone has their own timelines. Stop running with each and every one. You have your own path, so follow your path. Do not follow anyone else's trajectory. So if you are following this, you're gonna end up in this stress trap, where you will be you will be dealing with a lot of stress. And do not forget to talk about these with specialists. Don't try to figure it out everything by yourself. Talk with the people. And one last thing, I know I'm taking a bit more time, but one last thing I really want to highlight is research is very political as well. For your publication, for your own research, you should know this. Research is important for promotions. Research is important for your growth of yourself as a professional as well. So not forget these aspects. And to rise up in your position, to rise up in the community, to be more influential in the community, you actually have to do high quality research, and you cannot do it without publication. I'm personally thinking that there's an idea of publisher parish, which is good, but it has its own negative impacts on a lot of researchers and the quality of the research that people are producing. But know this, that it is important. It is important that you publish it and you share your knowledge in the conferences and through the research journals as well. And last thing, communicate well your research. Write about it, write blogs about it, write your Twitter accounts and or share your information there. Use Facebook, use Instagram, talk about your research, follow the researchers, and get more understanding of your research and share your understanding with others. Thank you so much.
We have a few questions that have been shared to us in the chat, and I will be reading them out one by one, and any of the respected panelists can answer them. The first question we have is from Dr. Muhammad Naeem Server, who asks, with the availability of AI-assisted writing tools such as Grammarly, Claude, ChatGPT, and so on, how do researchers develop and retain strong command of vocabulary, grammar, and academic writing conventions?
Okay, every AI tool has certain limitations. For example, the generative AI tools such as Claude and ChatGPT, they are reported to change meanings, change context, and the articles, the English language generated from these ChatGPT sort of tools, they are flagged by the Turnitin when you are testing these manuscripts for plagiarism using Authenticate or using the Turnitin. They are flagged. And mostly it puts a negative effect on the acceptance of your manuscript. Now, the journal editors may send it back. And regarding Grammarly, Grammarly does not make your articles native. It just checks the grammar. It just checks the grammar. It is a thing that has to be used at the end when the article is ready for submission. So you have to keep reading good research articles, and your English language will definitely improve if you do a lot of reading with a particular focus to improve your English language. You read more with a particular attention to the details about the formal writing, and you will learn it with the time. There's another question that in research papers, which language, American or British, can be used? See, you have to read the journal's author instruction page. In author instruction page, if they clearly mention that it should be American English or the British English, you have to follow those conventions strictly. But if they do not mention that, then you can choose whatever style you like, whether American or British, but whatever the style is, you have to remain consistent. It cannot be the mix of American English and the British English. You have to stick one particular convention.
Dr.
Thank you,
Saklan,
Dr. Saklan. The
there is
next
one
question
more
we have is from Farzana Yusuf, who's joining us from the University of Education. She asks, most researchers are demotivated due to a fear of rejection, and therefore they don't submit their research in impact factor journals. Another factor is the high publication fee. So can any forum be present in Pakistan to help out the beginners or researchers who are just starting out with the publication process?
Can I answer this question?
Of course, ma'am.
All right. So thank you for asking this question, Fazana. And this partly also answers question asked by Mr. Khalid Mahmood Arif as well. So you are talking about rejection. Rejections are hard. And they sometimes, you sometimes also feel demotivated. However, let me give you a tip that I learned. I have learned in my research process. If you want to make publication process faster, so this is what you should do. I think you should consider the frequency of publication for the journal. So let's say you identify a journal that publishes only one issue a year. It means they will take months to answer, to get back to you. If it's rejection, they may take 5-6 months or even more, which kind of wastes your time. So in that case, in the beginning, especially for early career scholars, I highly recommend that they consider journals that have more frequency of publication, or let's say they publish, let's say 10 or at least 5 issues a year. So let's take another example of a journal that publishes 12 issues or 10 issues a year. This means that they have to get an issue out almost every month or every other month. In that case, they will give you decision most probably in weeks. And if the decision is rejection, you can always move on to the next journal. So this is a helpful tip that has worked for me, and I hope you also find it helpful. And this was also my response to question asked by Mr. Khalid Mahmood Arif. This is
There's another question that what are some common mistakes that first-time researchers should avoid when writing a research proposal in English language and literature? See, the new researchers, they usually make the mistake that their articles, their writings, they lack concision, they lack precision, they are highly disconnected, they lack flow and rhythm. As I said earlier, it comes after a lot of practice. The more you read the articles carefully, the more you learn how to increase the concision and the precision and the accuracy and the clarity and how to connect your thoughts logically. So it comes after a lot of practice. There's another question: after writing a research paper, can I refine its language using AI tools? Using ChatGPT and other generative AI tools, you can use them, but you have to be very careful because the generative AI can change context, can change meaning and substance. Sometimes it can even ruin the very essence of the message that you want to deliver. So you have to be very careful, and it also is flagged in the Turnitin and Authenticate. It flags as the AI generated content, and they send the articles back to you that you have to remove that AI content. So you have to be very careful while using AI tools, but you can use them.
Dr. Suklan, I would like to add over here, and I would stress on the part where I see the practice where what students do is whatever they write, they just upload the entire paper and ask AI to improve it. So I do want to discourage that, because वो कहते हैं नकल के लिए भी अकल की जरूरत होती है. When students say कि AI से हम improve कर सकते हैं, उनका मकसद ये होता है कि हम AI पे पूरा पेपर डाल दें और उनको बोलें इसको refine कर दो. So answer is no. Do not do that. But as sir has highlighted कि you can take help, but take it smartly. आप उसको इस तरह से ले सकते हैं कि वो आपका flag ना हो जाए. जब आप अपना पूरा पेपर upload करेंगे तो it would be marked as fully plagiarized. So please do not do that.
Yes, I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe we are over time now, so we will conclude the session. As we come to the end of today's panel discussion, we also conclude the research methodology course. On behalf of the Center for Learning and Teaching and Dr. Rukhsana Zia, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished panelists, Dr. Firazat Jabin, Dr. Suklan Abbas, Dr. Sharoon Hanouk, and Dr. Subha Mir for sharing their valuable insights and practical experiences. Thank you so much. We would also like to thank all our speakers, participants, and registrants for making this series a success. We hope the knowledge and perspectives shared throughout this course will support you in your research endeavors. Goodbye, and we hope to see you all again